Been progressing this guitar. Frets have been dressed and polished. The body's been rubbed back and buffed on the buffing machine. It was rubbed back with a 400 grit and a 600 grit wet, and then buffed with two different grade polishes. It's come out quite well, and it's now got to be assembled with all the various bits and pieces and then played. I'm going to get that mug sandblasted. This is the buffing machine I use. Not quite as fancy as the StewMac version, but works really well. You need something that has a relatively low RPM. I think this is about 12 to 1500. I generally use two wheels. The dark grey one you can see fitted. It's a 10-inch diameter wheel. It's a little bit more coarse. And I use this polish on it. Get this from the polishing shop. And then for the finer stuff, there's a softer wheel, and I use the P175. There is a softer one, which is the white wheel. You can see the white mop, you can see at the back, with this super finish white polish, but it is a nightmare using it. You get so much dust and flock coming off, and it is a good idea to have a little bit of dust extraction, although it's fairly heavy, so it doesn't fill the air, it falls straight to the floor, but you do get a lot of waste. The heavier grey compound is ideal for polishing frets. You just got to mask the fingerboard off and then use the wheel to polish up your frets. I didn't show you the process of buffing the guitar because it's just noisy and very dusty. Nobody wants to listen to that. When you polishing the guitar with the buffing machine, you do have to be careful. If you put too much pressure on, it will melt or drag, or it'll either melt the finish or it'll soften the finish such that it drags and makes a mess, and it's difficult if you get to that stage to resurrect it without respraying. But it's a bit of light pressure, and you will feel the surface of the guitar does get quite warm while you're doing it, so you've got to be fairly delicate, particularly when you're doing the edges or any sharper arises like this. It's easy to take the lacquer or the paint off completely, which when you get used to doing it can be quite a good method of applying a little bit of distress if that's what you're after, but it's probably better to do that with wet and dry paper than the buffing wheel. I've just been lightly aging a few sets of machine heads. Don't try this at home. That's pretty much all the components that are going to be used. Got a fair degree of gloss on the body. Unfortunately, I lost my cable while I was buffing the guitar, so I'll now need to fiddle around and fit another one from the pickup route into the control cavity. Just got to set the knobs out. As I mentioned before, it's quite important as to how they look. So I want the volume knob, centre line of the knob, in line with the back of the bridge. I mean, there's no rules to this, it's just me being obsessive. And I usually have them spaced about 50mm apart, so the tone knob will sit like that, could go to 55. Where they sit laterally, I need to work out, because it's quite easy to, if you're not careful, you can drill your hole through into the control cavity and discover that you haven't allowed enough room internally for the pot, because it'll be butting up against the wall of the cavity. Ideally, I should have drilled these before I finished the guitar, but I didn't. So I will decide on the exact set out and then drill these out on the pillar drill. Moving on, check twice and all that. I've just had a look to see where the control cavity is. Yeah, I know it's on the back of the guitar, but for some reason, when I set it out, I set the front line of the plate to line through with the string through holes, or the centre of the string ferrule block on the back. No idea why, I've never done one like that before. So I can't have the knob sat there, obviously. The knobs are going to have to come down this way. So that's totally thrown me. As you can see, string ferrule block sits like so. That lines through with the string through holes. Yeah, it looks great on the back, but it's not quite going to work out how I wanted it on the front. Bit of a rethink now, it's going to do my head in. So, on an entirely random basis, I've picked this location. Check underneath that the pots will fit, which they will. Don't need to measure that, he says. I probably need to get out more, but fortunately that connecting rod kind of sits quite well with the line of those two knobs. I also need to drill for a couple of these really very small, I don't even know if you can see them, rivets, which will be the position markers. I've decided on black ones, they're steel. I've also got brass and copper, but they will stand out better and match or closely match the knobs, which of course is important to some. Right, I'll get that drilled now. That's the pots and knobs fitted. I've used 300k logarithmic pots or audio pots for both. You could use a linear pot on the tone, but I don't think it makes that much difference. And it's easy to, it's very subjective, and they're easy to swap out if need be. Got to fix the bridge, drill out and fix the bridge, and the remaining string through holes. It's always a really good idea to check your string spacing on your two outer strings to see how it sits on the fingerboard, because you have got scope to move the bridge a tiny amount one way or the other. And similarly, when you're fixing your bridge, fix it initially with just 2 screws, and then if you do need to alter it, you can use the two blank spaces that you haven't already drilled to move it, but that one sits quite well as it is. So that'll be drilled out and screwed down now. Not forgetting, of course, to put in a ground wire from there to the control cavity. Just fitting the machine head bushes. Summit fret, well, it's a fret press or just a press. Great for fitting the bushes. Don't try and hammer them in, you'll never get them in square. That's a good bit of kit. There'll be a link at the end telling you where to get stuff from. You can use it as a fret press, but I prefer the GMC kit that I was using in one of the other videos. It's got to fit the bridge saddles now and the machine heads. Then we can get it strung up. when I fit the machine heads, these are Goto machine heads, decent quality kit. I generally throw away the screws that come with them and fit a better quality stainless steel screw. You quite often find all the screws that are supplied with hardware, unless it's relatively quite expensive, they're not very good quality and you can tend to damage the heads quite easily. I also don't relic screws. I don't like relic screws. I mean, relic screws, they look okay, but quite often it weakens them. I don't think it's a good idea. So for instance, on that plate, which has been deliberately rusted, we've got new screws and I don't think it looks too bad. I know it's a bit of a contrast, but it's better to have a working screw than one that's been chewed up. Fit your 2 outside machine heads using a straight edge. That's just a bit of scrap aluminium channel. I always use it. You can drill those, screw them up, and then the rest will drop in. Don't tighten all the screws until everything is in place, and then, well, when I say tighten, don't fully tighten, leave them slightly slack, and then you can drop them all in and tighten them all up, making sure that everything lines up and looks the part. Always do some sort of depth stop on your drill, because invariably one day you will slip and you'll drill straight through the front face of the headstock. And as I say, I've used replacement screws. They're stainless steel, 2.2mm diameter. Machine head's fitted. I've dropped the ferrule block in with a little bit of white glue, and I'll leave that now, let it set and string up tomorrow. Another day. I've wired the guitar, the block's fitted. The wiring, CTS pot, switchcraft jack, there's a treble bleed fitted. I've used cloth covered pushback wiring because I like it. There will be a short video on guitar wiring, tips and tricks, and another one on capacitors when I get round to doing it. I've got to cut the nut next. I've been through various nut files you may recognise, not naming names. They're all rubbish to mediocre. I now use these Music Nomad files. They're diamond coated and I have to say they're absolutely brilliant. I cut the nut by eye, so I'm going to get on and do that now. You can see the carbon fibre backplate. That is linked into the guitar's ground or earth circuit. The steel cavity cover is also included within that circuit, which is giving you a partial Faraday cage, if that's any use. But it would be quite easy to line the sides of the control cavity with copper foil, which would give you a complete metal grounded box. All done. Turned out okay in the end. Fully reclaimed mahogany, set neck, weighs £6 14 ounces, got a Monty's 54P90 in, Evo Gold frets. What does it sound like? An electric guitar. We'll give it a whirl. I forgot to mention earlier, when I was banging on about reclaimed woods in the other videos, I made the Rock City guitars, which are probably the best example of a reclaimed product. And also there was a NCG Apostle made from a reclaimed pine door, which worked out very well, and hopefully Asa can now flash up some photographs for you to see what I'm on about.